What if the darkest moment of your life wasn't a punishment, but an invitation? What if the pain that broke you was the hand of God reshaping you for something greater? Listen, every one of us has walked through nights so long we thought the sun forgot our name. But the truth is, dawn always comes. Not when you control it, not when you deserve it, but when you surrender to it. Faith isn't proven in the light. It's discovered in the dark. It's not about the religion you wear. It's about the battle you survive. The kind of faith that goes beyond the surface doesn't whisper. It roars in the silence and says, "I'm still here. I still believe." So if you're standing in the shadows right now, don't you dare give up. Because maybe, just maybe, your night isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your dawn. What if the darkness you're running from isn't your enemy, but your invitation? What if the pain that's breaking you is actually the very thing meant to wake you up? We all talk about light, about faith, hope, and peace, but no one wants to walk through the night it takes to find them. Everyone loves the sunrise, but few are willing to sit through the storm that brings the dawn. The truth is, no one discovers real faith under bright skies. It's in the suffocating dark, when every answer disappears, that something eternal begins to whisper. The journey through darkness isn't glamorous. It's lonely, raw, and often humiliating. It's those nights when your prayers hit the ceiling and bounce back in silence, when you scroll through your life and nothing seems to make sense anymore. When the people you trusted the most walk away and the mirror reflects someone you barely recognize. You try to keep smiling, but inside, something is cracking. The darkness creeps in, not with monsters and shadows, but with a cold numbness that steals your will to fight. That's when most people give up, shut down, or distract themselves with noise. But what if, in that suffocating stillness, faith is being born? Because here's the shocking truth. Faith doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in chaos. It's not built in church pews or quiet routines. It's built in heartbreak, failure, and the silence of unanswered prayers. Darkness doesn't destroy faith. It exposes what kind you actually have. When everything is stripped away, status, plans, confidence, you're left face to face with the real question. What do I believe when nothing works? That's the moment of divine confrontation, the moment you stop performing faith and start experiencing it. It's strange how darkness, the very thing we fear, becomes the place of the most honest conversation between a soul and its creator. In the quiet, when there's no audience to impress, no one to convince, you can finally say what's real. I'm scared. I don't understand. I don't know if I believe anymore. Those confessions don't make you faithless. They make you authentic. Because faith isn't pretending you're fine. It's admitting you're not, and still daring to believe that light exists beyond what you can see. That's where transformation begins, not in strength, but in surrender. Think about it. Seeds grow in dirt, not sunlight. Diamonds are forged under pressure, not praise. And faith, real, unshakable faith, is discovered in darkness, not in daylight. The journey through darkness strips you of everything fake so that when dawn comes, you're not just shining, you're real. You stop quoting faith and start living it. You stop chasing blessings and start seeking truth. You realize that faith isn't about escaping pain. It's about enduring it with purpose. It's about walking when you can't see and trusting that even the dark has meaning. The most dangerous thing about darkness isn't that it hides things, it's that it reveals them. It shows you who you are when no one's watching. It exposes what you truly depend on. And when that false light is gone and you stand in the emptiness of your own strength, you have two choices: fall apart or fall into grace. One leads to despair, the other to dawn. But to reach that dawn, you have to stop fighting the dark and start listening to it. There's a voice in that silence, not one of defeat, but of calling. It's the sound of something holy, whispering that even this night has purpose. So what if the darkness wasn't meant to destroy you at all? What if it's the classroom where faith learns to breathe? What if the very thing you're cursing right now is the path that will lead you to real light? Not borrowed, not fake, but eternal. Because the truth is, dawn doesn't come to those who escape the night. It comes to those who walk through it, eyes open, heart trembling, yet refusing to let go. The journey through darkness isn't the end of faith, it's the birthplace of it. What if the moment you called your breaking point wasn't the end, but the beginning? What if the day your world fell apart was actually the day your soul began to wake up? We spend our lives trying to hold it all together, careers, relationships, faith, image, and then one day, without warning, it all collapses. The plans you built like castles turn to sand. The people you thought would always be there vanish. The confidence you once carried drains out of you like water through open hands. And in that silence, raw, hollow, unbearable, you hear it. Nothing. Just nothing. That's the sound of your breaking point, and it's terrifying. But what if that silence isn't your ruin, but your rebirth? Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Faith doesn't bloom when life is perfect. It erupts when everything is shattered. When you hit the ground so hard that the mask breaks, the pride breaks, the illusion of control breaks, and what's left is just you and your questions. The breaking point is where you find out whether your faith was a performance or a pulse. You see, it's easy to believe when life is comfortable. It's easy to talk about trust when everything's going your way. But when you're standing in the wreckage of your own plans, when your prayers echo back in emptiness, when you can't feel anything but the weight of loss, that's where real faith either dies or is born. Most people run from that moment. They numb it, hide it, drown it in distraction. But the brave ones, those who dare to stay in the pain, discover something unbelievable. The breaking point is not a wall, it's a doorway. It doesn't come to destroy you, it comes to expose you, to strip away the false strength you've been hiding behind. The pressure you feel isn't punishment, it's the sound of your old self cracking open so something deeper can live. When everything you thought you needed is taken, you finally realize what you truly need. When the voices fade, you begin to hear the whisper that's been waiting beneath the noise all along. It's strange how often darkness, the very thing we fear, becomes the place of the most honest conversation between a soul and its creator. In the quiet, when there's no audience to impress, no one to convince, you can finally say what's real. I'm scared. I don't understand. I don't know if I believe anymore. Those confessions don't make you faithless. They make you authentic. Because faith isn't pretending you're fine. It's admitting you're not, and still daring to believe that light exists beyond what you can see. That's where transformation begins, not in strength, but in surrender. Think about it. Seeds grow in dirt, not sunlight. Diamonds are forged under pressure, not praise. And faith, real, unshakable faith, is discovered in darkness, not in daylight. The journey through darkness strips you of everything fake so that when dawn comes, you're not just shining, you're real. You stop quoting faith and start living it. You stop chasing blessings and start seeking truth. You realize that faith isn't about escaping pain. It's about enduring it with purpose. It's about walking when you can't see and trusting that even the dark has meaning. The most dangerous thing about darkness isn't that it hides things, it's that it reveals them. It shows you who you are when no one's watching. It exposes what you truly depend on. And when that false light is gone and you stand in the emptiness of your own strength, you have two choices: fall apart or fall into grace. One leads to despair, the other to dawn. But to reach that dawn, you have to stop fighting the dark and start listening to it. There's a voice in that silence, not one of defeat, but of calling. It's the sound of something holy, whispering that even this night has purpose. So what if the darkness wasn't meant to destroy you at all? What if it's the classroom where faith learns to breathe? What if the very thing you're cursing right now is the path that will lead you to real light, not borrowed, not fake, but eternal? Because the truth is, dawn doesn't come to those who escape the night. It comes to those who walk through it, eyes open, heart trembling, yet refusing to let go. The journey through darkness isn't the end of faith, it's the birthplace of it. What if the moment you called your breaking point wasn't the end?
What if everything you called faith was just a costume you learned to wear? What if your belief wasn't built on conviction, but on comfort, on habits, not heart? What if all your prayers, your rituals, your routines weren't proof of connection, but symptoms of distance? It's a terrifying thought to realize that you can know all the words, quote every verse, sing every song, and still be hollow inside. You can look faithful, sound faithful, even convince yourself you are faithful, and yet never actually feel the pulse of it. Because somewhere along the way, faith became a performance, not a relationship. It became about looking right, not living true. The surface kind of faith is easy, it's predictable, safe, and socially acceptable. It's the kind that nods in agreement during sermons, but never wrestles in silence. It's the kind that loves being seen, but hates being exposed. It thrives on applause, not surrender. And the scariest part? Most people don't even know they're living this way. They confuse comfort with conviction, popularity with purpose. Their faith exists only as long as life is smooth, but the moment the storm hits, it cracks. Because surface faith is fragile. It can't survive the weight of real life. Imagine this. You've built your belief like a house of glass, shiny, admired, spotless, but the foundation underneath is hollow. The first tremor of pain, the first unanswered prayer, and everything shatters. That's when you discover whether your faith was rooted or rented. Real faith doesn't crumble in crisis, it deepens. It's not afraid of hard questions or silence. It doesn't depend on perfect circumstances or the approval of others. But surface faith? It collapses because it was never real. It was just decoration. It's like painting sunlight on a wall and calling it a window. You can fool yourself for a while, but eventually the darkness exposes the lie. We live in a world obsessed with image, polished posts, filtered lives, edited emotions. And that obsession has seeped into our spirituality. We've learned how to look holy instead of becoming whole. We've replaced transformation with performance, depth with display. We say the right things because that's what people expect, but deep down we're starving for something genuine. That hunger, the one we drown in noise and distraction, is the cry of the soul for authenticity. Because surface faith might make you look good in front of people, but it leaves you empty when you're alone in the dark. And that's the moment of truth. The silence when no one's watching, when the lights are off, when it's just you and your doubts. That's when you find out whether your faith is surface or substance. When there's no stage, no likes, no validation, what's left? Do you still believe? Do you still trust? Or was your faith only alive as long as someone else was watching? Because real faith isn't found in the spotlight, it's found in the shadows. It's born in the quiet battles no one sees, in the questions that make you tremble, in the surrender that no one applauds. It's shocking how easily we settle for imitation. We wear the label of faith like a badge of honor, but we never let it reach our bones. We keep it at the surface because the surface is safe. Real faith is dangerous. It costs you something. It asks you to let go of pride, to face your fear, to confront your hypocrisy. It strips you bare and rebuilds you from the inside out. And that's what most people avoid. They want the comfort of faith without the change it demands. But the truth is, faith without depth is just decoration, a spiritual selfie that fades when life gets real. What if the reason your faith feels lifeless isn't because God is distant, but because you've never gone deeper than the surface? What if you've mistaken routine for relationship, repetition for revelation? What if the emptiness you feel isn't failure, but an invitation to go deeper, to stop performing, to start being honest? Because beneath the surface faith you've built lies something waiting to breathe, real, raw, unpolished faith. The kind that can stand when everything else falls. The kind that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in truth, not appearance. And maybe that's what the darkness in your life is trying to do right now. Not destroy your faith, but expose the surface so the real thing can finally come alive. What if the moment you called your darkest hour was actually the beginning of your dawn? What if the pain that broke you was never meant to bury you, but to awaken something inside you that could only live after the fall? We talk about dawn like it's gentle, peaceful, beautiful, but nobody tells you that before the light comes, the night fights harder. The minutes before sunrise are the darkest. The air feels heavier, the silence unbearable. That's when most people give up, just before everything changes. What if the storm you're trapped in right now is the labor before your new life begins? Every dawn starts with chaos. The sky doesn't turn from black to gold in an instant, it wrestles. The light doesn't politely enter, it breaks through. And faith is exactly like that. It doesn't emerge in calm moments of clarity, it's born in the middle of collapse. You think you've lost everything, but maybe what you've lost were the illusions that blinded you from seeing what was real. The moment you thought was your ending might just be the beginning of you seeing truth without the filters, without the masks, without the lies you told yourself to survive. Because dawn isn't about the light outside, it's about the light inside that refuses to die, even when everything around you screams darkness. The shocking thing about the dawn is how it always comes after you stop expecting it. It doesn't wait for your permission, it doesn't ask if you're ready. It just comes, quietly, stubbornly, like grace sneaking through the cracks of your despair. You can't manufacture it. You can't force it. It happens the moment you stop trying to hold your world together and simply let go. That's when something divine starts to stir, not in your strength, but in your surrender. The dawn doesn't arrive because you fought harder. It arrives because you finally stopped fighting what was meant to change you. People think faith is about holding on tight, but sometimes faith is the courage to release, to stop pretending you understand, to stop demanding answers, to stop fearing the dark. Because dawn isn't the removal of darkness, it's the revelation that the dark never had the final word. You see, the dawn doesn't erase the night. It proves it couldn't win. And when you've been through hell and still wake up with breath in your lungs, that's faith. Not the polished, pretty kind, but the gritty, trembling, defiant kind that whispers, "I'm still here." That's what discovering faith beyond the surface really looks like. It's not found in comfort, it's found in survival. What if the light you've been praying for isn't something coming from above, but something already buried inside you? Maybe the dawn isn't waiting for the sun, it's waiting for you to stop hiding behind your pain and start seeing purpose in it. Waiting for you to realize that every loss, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was not punishment, it was preparation. Preparation for a version of you that only the dark could shape. The dawn doesn't come to those who escape the night. It comes to those who endure it, eyes open, heart shattered but still beating. And here's the truth no one says out loud. The dawn feels strange at first. You've been in the dark so long that light hurts. Hope feels foreign. Joy feels suspicious. You squint against it, unsure if it's real or just another illusion. But then slowly, you see it. The horizon changing, the world awakening. The things that used to paralyze you start to lose power. The fears that ruled you shrink in the glow of something stronger. You realize that the dawn didn't fix you, it revealed you. You were never the same person who entered the night. You came out raw, scarred, but more real than you've ever been. The darkness didn't end your faith, it purified it. The moment of dawn is not a soft light switch, it's a spiritual earthquake. It's that shocking realization that what you thought was abandonment was actually transformation. That while you were drowning in despair, something sacred was rebuilding your soul. You start to see that the things that broke you also built you. That the cracks in your heart weren't weaknesses, they were the openings where light could finally enter. You understand now why you had to lose certain people, why certain doors never opened, why certain prayers were unanswered. Because if they had, you would never have gone deep enough to discover the kind of faith that can't be shaken. What if the reason you've been waiting so long for your dawn is because you've been afraid to let go of the night? Afraid to release the identity that pain gave you? Sometimes we cling to the darkness.
What if the light you've been searching for was never meant to shine on you, but through you? What if your story, the one filled with mistakes, heartbreak, failure, and recovery, wasn't meant to be hidden, but meant to guide someone else through their night? We love to talk about faith as something personal, something private between us and God. But what if that's only half the truth? What if your survival was never meant to end with you? Because maybe, just maybe, your scars were designed to become someone else's map. Maybe the light you found in your darkest hour isn't yours to keep. It's your responsibility to share. It sounds beautiful, right? But the truth behind it is brutal. To become a light for others, you first have to walk through your own darkness. You have to know what it means to break. You have to know what silence sounds like when you cry out for answers and nothing comes back. You have to feel the weight of loneliness, the confusion of unanswered prayers, the sting of betrayal. Because light that hasn't known darkness doesn't reach far. It's too clean, too distant, too untouched. Real light is born from pain that has been redeemed. It's raw, it's imperfect, but it's powerful because it carries truth, and truth is what this world is starving for. What if the reason your journey has been so hard isn't because you're being punished, but because you're being prepared? Every heartbreak, every fall, every night you thought would never end, it's all been shaping your story into something that can save others. There's someone out there right now, standing where you once stood, fighting the same battle you thought you'd never survive. And they don't need your perfection, they need your honesty. They don't need a sermon, they need your scars. Because the moment you stop hiding your pain, it becomes a beacon. It tells them, you're not alone. I've been there, and I made it out. That's what light for others really means. It's not spotlight faith, it's survivor faith. The shocking truth is that people are not moved by perfection. They're moved by authenticity. You can pretend to be strong all you want, but what changes hearts is vulnerability. Your story, your messy, complicated, unfinished story has the power to ignite hope in people who've given up on it. But that requires courage, because shining your light means exposing where you were once broken. It means saying, I was lost too. It means stepping into the raw truth of who you were before the dawn and showing others that it's okay to be unfinished. Because the moment you do, something miraculous happens. Your pain loses its power to hurt you, and it gains the power to heal others. What if that's the real reason the light found you in the first place? Not just to comfort you, but to commission you. Because light isn't meant to be hoarded, it's meant to be shared. When you've truly discovered faith beyond the surface, it doesn't make you superior, it makes you compassionate. You stop judging and start understanding. You stop preaching and start listening. You start recognizing pieces of your old self in the broken people around you. You no longer need to be the hero. You just want to be the helper, the hand that reaches into the dark for someone else. And that's when you realize something incredible. The purpose of surviving the night is not just to see the dawn, it's to become it. Most people don't realize how much power their story holds because they're too busy hiding it. They're ashamed of their past, their pain, their failures. But what if the very things you're most ashamed of are the things that could set someone else free? The enemy of hope is silence. When you hide your story, you rob others of the courage to face their own. But when you speak it, when you tell the truth about where you've been and what you've learned, you break the chains for someone else. Your testimony becomes a torch. It burns with the proof that healing is real, that change is possible, that even the most shattered life can still shine. That's not weakness, that's power. That's faith made visible. There's something shocking about the light that comes from broken people. It's different. It doesn't blind, it warms. It doesn't boast, it invites. It doesn't say, "Look at me." It says, "Come with me." Because light for others isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up again and again for the ones who still think the night will never end. It's about being the proof that even in darkness, grace is real. And sometimes your presence is the only sermon someone will ever believe. Not your words, not your certainty, just your willingness to stand in the dark beside them until their eyes adjust enough to see a glimmer of dawn. What if that's your purpose? Not fame, not fortune, not control, but light. What if every loss you've endured was crafting a legacy of illumination? Because people who have known deep darkness don't just appreciate light, they become it. They carry it with them in their eyes, in their voice, in the way they comfort others without needing to fix them. Their light doesn't demand attention, it gives direction. That's what it means to live faith beyond the surface. You don't just talk about hope, you embody it. Every time you forgive when it hurts, every time you choose love when bitterness would be easier, every time you keep walking when the world tells you to quit, you're lighting the way for someone else. And maybe that's what faith was always meant to be. Not a fortress to hide in, but a fire to carry. A flame that grows every time it's shared. The shocking thing about light is that the more you give it away, the brighter it gets. So maybe your role isn't to escape the darkness, but to enter it, carrying what others have forgotten, hope. Because somewhere out there, someone is watching you, silently praying for proof that dawn exists. And when they see your life, your resilience, your faith, your light, they'll know. If you could make it through your night, maybe they can survive theirs, too. What if your story, the one you thought was ruined beyond repair, wasn't meant to be erased, but meant to shine in someone else's darkness? What if every scar, every heartbreak, every sleepless night you begged for the pain to end was actually the preparation for something sacred, something bigger than you? What if the suffering you cursed was secretly crafting a strength that could save someone else? We live in a world obsessed with personal victories, but what if your greatest victory was never supposed to be private? What if your healing, your survival, your faith wasn't the finish line, but the starting light for someone else still trapped in their night? Because here's the truth that shocks us all. When you walk through darkness and finally reach dawn, it's not just your dawn. The light that saved you is meant to spread. You become a mirror for someone else's hope. Your journey becomes a lantern that glows with the proof that redemption is real. The same pain that once made you question your purpose becomes the very thing that defines it. Because faith that stops with you dies with you, but faith that flows through you lives forever. Think about it. The people who have touched your life the most weren't the ones who lived perfect stories. They were the ones who carried light forged in pain. The ones who had every reason to give up, but didn't. The ones who spoke truth because they'd lived through lies. Their words carried weight because they weren't theory. They were testimony. That's what happens when you move from darkness to dawn. Your pain transforms into power, your wounds into wisdom, your weakness into a weapon against despair. The light you now hold doesn't belong behind stained glass. It belongs in the broken streets, in the lonely rooms, in the quiet corners where people are still trying to believe that hope exists. Your scars are not signs of defeat. They're symbols of resurrection. And when you reveal them, you become a living reminder that light wins. It's easy to think that faith is a personal matter, that it's something quiet and internal. But real faith, the kind born beyond the surface, is contagious. It multiplies through the way you live, not through the words you say. When someone watches you love after betrayal, forgive after hatred, rise after collapse, that's faith preaching louder than any sermon. You don't have to tell people you believe. They'll see it in the way you treat them. They'll feel it in the way you carry peace through chaos. You become the evidence they didn't know they were looking for. You become the proof that light still breaks through the darkest nights. What if you're the answer to someone else's prayer right now, and you don't even know it? Someone out there might be hanging on by a thread, asking for a sign, and your story, your survival, might be that sign. The way you keep going, the way you choose kindness, the way you refuse to give up, it all matters. Because when you've been to the bottom and found your way back, you don't just rise, you lift others with you. That's the power of faith beyond the surface. It stops being about me and becomes about we.
What if the darkness you escaped is still chasing you? Not to destroy you, but to remind you what your light is worth. What if the things you ran from were never meant to haunt you, but to humble you, to keep your heart burning for something real? Because the truth no one likes to admit is that even after dawn, shadows still linger. Light doesn't erase darkness, it teaches you how to live with it differently. The journey of faith doesn't end when the sun rises, it begins there. Because dawn isn't a destination, it's a responsibility. Once you've walked out of your night, the question isn't, did I survive? It's, what will I do with the light I've found? We love to talk about redemption like it's a finish line, like once you're healed, you can forget everything that hurt you. But what if the purpose of healing isn't to erase your pain, but to transform it into compassion? What if your scars are supposed to keep you tender in a world that's grown cold? Because the most shocking thing about coming out of the dark is realizing that the world is still full of people trapped inside theirs. You can't unsee them anymore. You can't unfeel their pain. Your heart, once shattered, now becomes a compass. It points you toward those who are still breaking. And suddenly, your light isn't just about survival, it's about service. What if faith wasn't meant to lift you above others, but to make you bend lower, to kneel beside the hurting, to reach into the shadows for those who've lost their way? We talk about light like it's power, but real light is love. It doesn't stand at a distance and shine. It steps into the mess, into the fear, into the doubt. It gets dirty, it bleeds, it stays. Because the world doesn't need more people who look holy. It needs people who are human enough to love deeply. And maybe that's the real test of faith. Not how high you climb, but how low you're willing to reach. You can't carry dawn in your hands if you're too afraid to walk back into the night. It's shocking how many people believe faith makes them better than others. But faith beyond the surface doesn't make you proud, it breaks you open. It gives you eyes that see differently. You stop seeing sinners and saints, you just see people, all of them desperate for light in their own way. And when you remember how lost you once were, how blind you once felt, you can't look at anyone else with judgment anymore. You look with mercy, because you know what it's like to be in the dark, to beg for light, to wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. So now, when you see someone stumbling through their own night, you don't criticize, you reach out. You become what you once needed, a guide, a reminder, a living proof that dawn is real. What if that's why the darkness came in the first place? To teach you empathy you couldn't learn in the light. To strip away your pride, your illusions, your self-righteousness, until all that was left was love. Because the people who shine the brightest aren't the ones who've never been broken. They're the ones who've been shattered and rebuilt from grace. Their light is steady because they know what it cost. They don't shine to be seen. They shine so others can see their way home. And that's the kind of light that changes the world. Not the blinding flash of performance, but the steady glow of presence. Faith that lives beyond the surface never forgets where it came from. It doesn't deny the darkness, it honors it. Because you can't appreciate the dawn unless you remember the night. You carry your past like a lantern, not a chain. You use it to guide, not to guilt. Every mistake becomes a message. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every heartbreak becomes a bridge. That's the miracle of real faith. It recycles pain into purpose. It turns wounds into wisdom. It transforms everything you thought was wasted into something that matters. What if your life is supposed to be a ripple effect? Your light touching someone else's, their light touching another's, until entire generations are transformed by a single act of faith you lived out courageously. Because that's how real change happens, not through noise, not through fame, but through quiet consistency, one life igniting another. The dawn that began in you is meant to multiply. Every time you forgive, every time you choose kindness, every time you refuse to let bitterness win, you're spreading the light further. You're proving that darkness doesn't get the final word. And that's how legacies are born, not in grand gestures, but in everyday grace. But here's the hardest part of all. Sometimes being the light means walking alone again. Because not everyone will understand your fire. Some will envy it, others will fear it, and many will try to dim it. The same world that once pitied your darkness might now resent your dawn. But you didn't come this far to shrink back. The purpose of your light isn't to please people, it's to pierce shadows. You can't hide it to make others comfortable. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to break through. Because every time you choose truth over approval, love over indifference, faith over fear, you remind the world that light still wins. What if the dawn you found wasn't a gift to keep, but a mission to carry? What if the reason you were pulled out of your own night was so you could lead others out of theirs? That's not coincidence, that's calling. You don't need a title, a pulpit, or a platform to be that kind of light. You just need the courage to live honestly, to love fiercely, to stand in your truth even when it costs you. Because light isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's not about knowing everything, it's about refusing to give up, even when you don't. And maybe that's what faith was always meant to be. Not a shield from the dark, but a torch that keeps burning in spite of it. Because when your light touches another, and theirs touches another, the night doesn't stand a chance. As we've journeyed from darkness to dawn, we've seen that faith isn't about pretending everything is perfect, nor is it about surface appearances. It's about walking through the nights of doubt, heartbreak, and struggle, and discovering the strength, courage, and light that can only be found in those moments. Real faith is forged in the storms, tested at the breaking points, deepened beyond the surface, awakened at the dawn, lived daily, shared with others, and multiplied through your light. Remember, the pain you've endured is not wasted. It is the very thing that can illuminate someone else's path. The scars you bear are not weaknesses, they are symbols of resurrection. Your journey is more than survival. It is a legacy of hope, courage, and love for the world. So step forward boldly. Walk in your faith with authenticity. Let your light shine in places still shadowed. Embrace your story, own your journey, and remember that the Huron is already waiting. Good luck on every step of your journey. May your faith deepen, your light shine brighter, and may your story inspire countless others. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you today. Let's go forward together, from darkness to dawn.